Hello and welcome. We'll give folks a moment to join in on Zoom and then we'll get started. I now call this board workshop of the South Woodbury School District to order. We will begin as usual with our lane acknowledgement. We turn tonight to Dr. Clifford.
Okay, thanks to a community member who provided us with a bookmark about how to be an ally to Indigenous people. I'm going to read the first side of it and then I'll cite where it's from. Care for the earth, give thanks frequently, respect and support Indigenous sovereignty. Remember that treaties are the supreme law of the United States, Article 6, U.S. Constitution. Demand that our nation honors its treaty commitments. Consider future generations in all your actions. Resist stereotypes, including team names and mascots. Learn about and reject the doctrine of discovery. Reach out to your Indigenous neighbors. Slow down. Listen more than you talk. Notice where you are. Live with gratitude and lightly on the earth. This is from Josephine M. Cook from Syracuse Cultural Works. Words, two-row Wumpam Renewal Campaign SCW.
Thank you very much. As this is a workshop, this is our opportunity to include community comment, both in person and online. I will just remind folks that we do keep to our policy 0002 for professional communication standards, both for us elected to the board and for everyone involved, everyone who chooses to participate. If you are online, please use the Q&A function if you have a comment that you'd like to make, and if it relates to the current topic, then we will read it into the meeting. Please note your name and location when you do so, and also please make it a complete statement, not just I agree with that, because in all likelihood, we will have moved on from what you were talking about when you wanted to agree with it, and we don't want to get that mixed up. Okay, we move first into discussion, and this is one I'm very excited about as a teacher spouse getting into curriculum. So first I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clifford to turn it over from there.
Okay, so I'm really proud of the work that we're going to see today. Mrs. Phillips has done a great job of curating a solid and thorough update of the curriculum adoption process and curriculum information, including professional development to support our teaching and learning for our students and support for our staff. One of the things that I want to remind the community and the board is that your role around curriculum adoptions and budget and policy around curriculum adoptions and curriculum support and the budget around professional development directly relates to and correlates to the outcomes that we're able to show you today. And so I just wanted to make sure that we had that through line. And so you can see where your work sits as it supports students, staff, and outcomes for our students and families.
If I may, real quick, I do want to note Director Greenherron is with us virtually, even though he's not here in the room. So we do have a full board here today.
Yep. So, yep. And the board goals that we're focusing on is around student outcomes. And there's a little bit of data in here. And so I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Phillips, and she's going to share with you all of the great things that we have to report out.
Thank you, Dr. Clifford. Prior to that, I want to highlight some gratitude myself. First for Dr. Clifford, her experience and support in the lens of curriculum, but really expanding it into teaching and learning. There's some really exciting things getting some momentum, which also feeds right into our instructional council, which is really starting to dig in and make some really invested and thoughtful choices. And it's a bonus. It's a really lovely group to work with and kind of nerd out with. I hope everybody gets in a group where you feel safe to really bring out that nerd side of yourself, and the instructional council seems to be that. And I'm very privileged to be a part of it. I have the clicker and it has a little delay because we're kind of far apart. So bear with us on the slow pace. Just a reminder of our 3 district goals. There's alignment to curriculum and teaching and learning in all 3 of them. The first is social emotional learning. When we look at curriculum, we understand that there's explicit teaching and social emotional learning, which we have curriculum for, but also in addition to that, social emotional learning is embedded into all curriculum, and that is a forefront of what we look at when we select materials in lesson planning. Academic growth, of course, we're looking at how curriculum supports all learners and the growth and the achievements that they partake. Logistically, one of our biggest ones would be assets and finances. These are precious dollars that we're spending, and we're looking for the most important materials that can give us what we need. So logistics, especially with money, is something we're very cognizant of. A little overview agenda for us. We have a draft of our curriculum map we've been working on to look at where we are and where we need to go. Our adoption updates from 2023 are ELA to K-12, mathematics from 2019, professional development, and then next steps for curriculum. This is a really nice visual for us. Those highlighted in red are practice and pedagogy, looking at curriculum and what we do with it. The materials that we have, what is our inventory, what is meeting needs, and what is something we need to look at, revise, or as Common Core state standards change, what do we need to look at, and is it still fulfilling those areas? And then lastly, course offering and sequencing, vertical alignment, that K-12 focus of what we're offering, how it's sequenced so that we're meeting all state standards, but also the needs of our students. This is a draft of what we have so far in curriculum as of now. In some ways it's K2, and most it's K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. English language arts being the most recent curriculum adoption update. CKLA is the umbrella term, so you might hear me use it interchangeably with Amplify or CKLA. Amplify is the primary English language arts curriculum at the K5 level, housed by CKLA. So just for clarity, I think a lot of you know that, but not everybody here might not. English language arts CKLA, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth about, that was adopted at a K5 level. Common Lit, Membeam Grammar, that Sticks and Parlay are all approved adoption materials from 2023, along with Norton textbooks and the many teacher created materials that are driven by the units of study that were adopted in 2023. I've brought some of the novels that were adopted. I'll have the list again. I think I know you guys well enough to know you like to skim through books, so I grabbed a few for you. Ready Math 2019 for our K5 team. Big Ideas Math at a 6-12 level with some additions for calculus and pre-calculus with Larson curriculum. Science is where we start to look at where we have some strengths and where we have some areas for opportunity. At the K5 level, Mystery Science is a primary source of curriculum. CKLA embeds a lot of NGSS is short for NAT. Wow, that just blanked out on me. Thank you. Next Generation Science Standards. So there's a lot of embedded social studies and science within CKLA or Amplify. And then our Farm, Forest, and Sea for the South Woodby Elementary Schools focus curriculum hits a lot of science standards that they'll get in STEM class, in garden class, as well as in their general education classroom. 6, 8, and 9, 12. Pearson Science Explorer supplemented through CK12. Open SciEd. Open SciEd is something we've piloted as a team in 2023. We started to look at science and the needs that we have specifically at a 6-12 level. We worked with our ESD to look at Open SciEd, and we've piloted. The team is a little hesitant to move forward with it, partially because financially it's a really large commitment when it comes to, even though it's open source, the materials and the ability to maintain them, as well as the scope and sequence of time that we would have to offer what is offered in Open Sci. We're not 100% sure that that's where we want to go. So we're having conversations around that. as well as using Pearson for biology for general and AP. Draft for social studies, Spanish, PE, health, and then social emotional learning, which kind of dovetails right into what was gifted to us today. Since time immemorial through OSPI, we had a professional development training a couple of years ago on since time immemorial, and it's a core component of our social studies courses throughout, especially in the elementary school. Scholastic News, again, embedded into CKLA, and then teacher created. 6, 8, and 9, 12, there's more vertical alignment. 7th grade, Washington State history is historically when we have it. It can be offered at any time. It's a graduation requirement. So the textbook, The Washington Journey, is what is utilized for that, in addition to since time immemorial as a secondary component to that course, which is also embedded into 8th grade, which is our U.S. history at the mid-level. The secondary level Prentice Hall, those are starting to get dated. A lot of our teachers are creating supplemental materials in addition to that. Spanish is only offered at the high school level at this time, and that was adopted in 2021. PE and health have had some smaller curriculum updates or adoptions in the last few years. Flash is offered in 5th and middle school, which is our sex ed curriculum. Shape America is a thread throughout, and then we have textbooks for both health and PE at the secondary level. Social emotional learning at a K-8 level, we have Caring School Community, which was adopted, I want to say 2019. Restorative justice education, which was part of our professional development a few years back, and then leadership team created lessons based off of data we take, working with students, discipline data, feedback from our student support team, and then using the materials and curriculum that we have in order to meet the needs of students. At the 9-12 level, there's forefront training, which is suicide prevention, which is a large component of our social emotional learning for explicit lessons at the secondary level, that restorative justice education, and then leadership team created lessons. This is a little overview of, we're going to go English language arts, then math. So pre-2022, 2023, our team, we started to formulate a team and started piloting materials. 3 years ago, we were here presenting what the team proposed that was then accepted or approved. The first year of implementation, K-5, we had a mix of in-person and remote training for CKLA Amplify. And a lot of time within collaboration and teaming to look at the volume of information. What do I do with all that, and how can I scope that to meet the needs of my students, and pacing. We also took teacher feedback survey to refine professional development for the future years. What are they needing? What's meeting their needs, and how can we support that? At the 6-12 level, since they didn't have a large-scale curriculum, which would have traditional professional development within that, a lot of time was spent implementation of materials, refining instructional practice, and collaboration on data to review to make sure that what we've adopted is being worked at the way we wanted it to. Membeing is an online program that focuses on vocabulary and informational text, and so we've spent some hours in professional development with them to look at the data to make sure that the analytics are there, that we're meeting the need. And I think our board reps might say, yep, I've experienced that, and utilizing it as a tool and not overusing it, because it's not something that should be used as a primary everyday resource or tool. 2024, 2025, M-Class is a component of CKLA. It's a reading intervention program. So we did more targeted training and focus for that intervention curriculum. In addition to UFly, which is a K2 targeted approach to reading, train with some select staff, and then quarterly trainings with CKLA to continue refinement of how we utilize CKLA, what it offers, and then how we're using it within our classrooms. The 6-12 team continued that vertical alignment, reviewing and refining their scope and sequence to make sure it's meeting all standards. And a big thing our team works to do is to make sure students aren't exposed to, they're exposed to novels and materials, but it's not redundant, so they're not reading a book a second time in a class the next year. 2025, 2026, this has been a really exciting addition and implementation of what's called Bookshare. When we came to you 3 years ago, a big gap that we had was accessibility in audiobooks and materials. So Bookshare is something that we've begun to implement. It's a hyperlink for you that gives you more information that allows us to access audiobooks for students with disabilities. So it's been a really great addition to our ELA curriculum. Continuation and refinement in pacing guide. We've had remote trainings. Our 6-12 team formulated a book study this year to look at instruction and how we're meeting the needs of students in the classroom. The ELA Common Core State Standards are being released soon, so the team is starting to look at that. They were really excited, and it was in a non-ironic way that they were very excited about the upcoming release of this. So they're starting to look at that, digest that to see what those are, what we've had in the past to what's coming. Next year will be a full year of review for that before it's implemented in 2027, 2028. At the K-5 level, Tier 1, so all general education classes using Amplify as their primary ELA curriculum, supplemental with Boost, which is an online intervention program for students through CKLA. IXL, handwriting without tears, simplify writing components for English language arts and writing. Tier 2, those targeted intervention, often called ORCA reading. UFly, Boost, and M-Class are some supplements, and then Read Live is a previously adopted curriculum that's still accessed at times for students in that intervention program. Tier 3, typically a student qualifying for services in special education, maybe in reading or writing. M-Class, which is Amplify's intervention program. UFly, seeing stars and visualizing and verbalizing. 100% of our special education staff is trained in this. It's 14 hours of training in these very targeted reading intervention programs for implementation. This one is a lot, but I was thinking about the board and how they like to look at data. So when I was pulling this information, this is historical data of iReady scores from as far back as we're able to access 2022 to today. So we're really looking at patterns at this point. This is reading iReady historical data. So we're looking, what I did is each column, but then by trend of cohort, because we also understand that grade level, and then we also have cohorts where we're looking for trends and patterns. So they're matching historically what we would expect as a cohort. So this was us, and we've been looking at it. Ms. Richards and myself, Ms. Coda and I are having conversations about what this information means. So for example, Ms. Coda and I were emailing, we're getting together to look at what happened kinder last year, where we only had 59% of students complete the final diagnostic. So that percentage might not be reflective of the accuracy of where that cohort is, because when they took the 2025-2026 one is the mid-year assessment from this January. We'll have end of the year results in June to look at. So if that percentage looks off, it's because it's mid-year. But as we looked at where that cohort is mid-year, we're going to have conversation what happened in kinder at the end of last year. So we're looking at data trends to see, is this curriculum meeting our needs? What's happening? Are the trend lines off? So as a collective, the team is starting to look at this information because this is the year 3 of our Amplify adoption. And so is it meeting the needs? This is K-5s. Again, I was like, this is very visually a little rough to look at, but I'm aware that the board likes to see some data and digest what is working and what we're seeing with trends and cohorts. Go ahead.
And what I really appreciate that is happening at the elementary level through their leadership and their work, and then through your collaboration with them, is not just looking at is the curriculum meeting their needs, but how are they implementing the curriculum, how much time they're spending on, how are they selecting what parts of the curriculum, because oftentimes when you select or adopt a curriculum, the vendor is going to say, you need 90 minutes to 2 hours to do this. And then a school district has to determine how they're going to implement the curriculum, because you are not going to be able to do that in the amount of time that the vendor wants. So they have different ways that you can identify how to do your scope and sequence and pacing. And so you're doing in collaboration with the school, looking at not only the curriculum materials, but also the implementation and the practice.
Yeah, part of our instructional council, we audited staff on the percentage of time they're implementing different content areas, CKLA or reading and ELA being a focus. So try to get more alignment to that and committing to what the needs are in order to make progress, but also meet the needs in other content areas. I broke them up into 2 slides for sake of one. It's a lot, but 2, K-5 and the 6-8 team, we all use iReady as a diagnostic, but 6-8 is looking at different curriculum. So we're looking at those through lines again, as well as it's a separate building in and of itself. So percentage-wise, we were looking at trends in cohorts as well as what we've seen from 2022, 2023 to 2025, 2026. There's also other variables outside of curriculum, including this 2022, 2023 was our last year where we had our 5-6 South Campus. So 2023, 2024, having students become a 6-8 and a K-5 campus. So curriculum might have been different for those cohorts. In a post-COVID focus, we were looking at curriculum in a little bit different way than maybe we're doing now, as we're in this post-COVID kind of pendulum when it comes to curriculum. So having a lot of variables and conversations around that. And then the conversations at the 6-8 are a little different in the sense of what do we need our students to be prepared for 9th grade English, 9th grade math. Those conversations are happening so that that vertical alignment is connecting.
Can I ask a quick question about the prior slide?
Yes.
I see the single asterisk indicates that it was a mid-year assessment. What does the double asterisk
Thank you.
indicate?
That one, thank you. Ms. Coda and I were talking about this. This year, the 5th grade cohort team, so this data is from their mid-year review and not their end-of-year diagnostic. So the percentage is falsely skewed because it's basing it off of the normed focus of end-of-year data. So it's a big drop from 87 to 46. So that cohort was last tested in the diagnostic in January and not June.
Oh, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. I meant to make myself a note too.
Sorry. For the 59% or above in 2025, is that completion in the tested time? What is that? Can you elaborate?
Thank you, Gwendy. I appreciate that. When you look at each square, for example, I'm looking at Kinder 2022, 2023, 75% at or above grade level, and then 25% near grade level. So then I added both percentages because those would be students who would not be looking at targeted intervention.
Gotcha.
And then
Thank
in
you.
the third box over, the orange box, that indicates that among the 59% of students who took the test at that time, 8% tested at or above grade level.
Correct.
Okay.
That was
Thank
a
you.
bit of an anomaly year.
So basically, almost 40% of students were absent or otherwise not testing.
But then if we follow that same cohort to the next year, we went from 8% at or above to 32% at or above.
So if we looked at that in isolation, we'd be very worried. But looking at the trend line of, okay, the second year in the mid-year, 95% of students are above, at, or near grade level.
Yeah, it's an apples and oranges comparison if you're working with a different subset of the class.
What I'm looking at, and I looked at it in a different direction because I'm trying to follow the student, first grade, second grade, third grade, the scores are going down.
Yeah. Which are you looking at? Blue?
No, I'm just first grade in 2022, 2023,
Mhm.
96. And then if you follow that same group, because correct, it can change by student body, the percentages are going down.
What we're starting to see is this is our third year in Amplify. It's really strong foundational reading. So as we start to hit second, third grade level where we're solidifying our foundational reading skills, and now we're reading more for information, and being able to understand and comprehend and use that information. We're looking at what's going on with not so much skills, but the knowledge. Amplify is broken up into two primary lessons daily: is skills, which is more the act of learning how to read, and then knowledge is consuming information and then what you do with it, which second, third, fourth, fifth really starts to make that a primary focus of the curriculum. So it's, as we look at this pattern, is the skills at second and beyond strong enough, or do we need to look at how we're teaching that or how much time we're spending in that? So this is just where we're starting to get that information.
The way I understood it with iReady is a portion of the test is knowledge and a portion of it is comprehension. So it would reflect both necessarily.
That's a really simple way to put it in a.
Because I think when I look at my kiddo's scores, he might have the knowledge doing really well, but comprehension, he struggles a little bit. And iReady was a great way of kind of differentiating between those two. So I guess my concern is seeing that you had, because I understand the changes and the way that curriculum is presented, and hopefully the outcomes are different as we go up a grade or transition to a different curriculum. But when I'm looking overall, since we we do look at the overall outcome, which includes both comprehension and knowledge, meaning recognition, understanding, and then comprehension. But the concern I have is it's still saying that something's not working if the number of digits are going down.
Yeah. Thank you. How you said that aligns to what Mrs. Phillips was saying, is that there's two components to amplify as well. And that's why we're trying to make sure that our teachers, we're looking at these scores and breaking them down and saying, do we have a pattern on the data that's under this high level data? And if we see that the pattern's there, then we're going to go back and look and see how we're spending our time with the curriculum and what parts of the curriculum we're building out to make sure that we are supporting both and all aspects of all core components of reading. So what you said, it exactly aligns with what we're doing. We're unpacking to say, because we've got work to do. This shouldn't look, we want this to have an upward trend, not a downward trend. So we're unpacking this to help us inform what do we need to change about our practice and how do we use the instructional materials to support student needs.
And I was looking at the same data. I was looking for the same trends that you were. And I did notice some, like the class that starts in third grade in 2022, 2023, that started out at 74% at or above and went to 60 the next year. The year after that was they didn't get fully tested. So that's a little outlier, but that is a concern. But then we also have the one that started in first grade in 22, 23 that started out at 42 at or above. Next year went to 51, then to 74. And at the midpoint of the year, 84% are at, above, or near the end of year goals. So some of these cohorts do trend downward. Some of them are trending upward. So that's, I have full faith in the teaching team to unpack what's beneath these top level numbers. But I was looking for trends too, because that's what you do with data like this. I have full faith in the teaching team and admin team to see what's behind those inconsistent trends.
And it does take a couple years of data to look at, is the curriculum as it is it meeting the needs, or what's the refinement? Is it the skills, and is it the act of reading, or is it the knowledge and how we're comprehending and taking that information and what we do with it? So this is starting to allow us to unpack that. And this is a high level snapshot, whereas a teacher is looking at each subset and each subtest for each student. And that's where we can see more trend lines of information that we're getting back from our curriculum. Thank you for your question. At the 612 campus, the adopted textbooks that we have, Uncharted Territory, that's used in both 10th and 12th grade, which is a convenience because we're saving a little money. And then Introduction to Literature, which is used in our 12th grade, English class, both AP as well as the 12th grade course. This image is kind of chopped up, and some of the books that I brought, I asked a couple of the English teachers and said, can I bring a couple novels people can skim through them, because they're really beautiful books, and they also can give you a snapshot of what some of our students are reading. So this image is shared in all of our high school classrooms, as well as in the libraries, so that if a student or a librarian or a substitute came in, they would know. It's a nice anchor chart for us to know what is being read in each course. And so students also have kind of a snapshot of what they might be able to expect. I was in a 7th grade ELA class last week, and students were using adopted novels and doing book clubs. A student had chosen to do all three, but seeing what students had selected based off of the rubrics really matched them as students, their identity and their interests. So there's a couple of those titles here. Here's a more comprehensive view of it. At the time when we adopted in 2023, 6th grade was at the 5-6 campus. So when the 6th grade team came over to the middle school, we had a little bit of work to do with adoption to material, to the scope and sequence, and the theme and the standards. So a couple of those have been adopted and updated since, Percy Jackson being one of them, Phantom Tollbooth, are some that were added to 6th grade. 6th grade was one of those that has taken a lot of time, which has been a really great opportunity for our secondary team to look at the first year they come into our building and they're going to be here for 7 years. What are the foundational skills the standards and what we want them to be reading as they come in. So it was a really great opportunity to welcome sixth grade and develop the curriculum in order to support them in their 7 years at the secondary campus. 612 mathematics, this was adopted before my time. But at this point, we have Ready Math or iReady Math. There's correlation to the diagnostic at the elementary campus that we don't have at secondary. So Ready Math is the core instruction. Supplemental IXL, Ready Math in accordance to the scope and sequence. 612, Big Ideas, and Lawson is used. So at the mid-level, you'll see 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then we prefer the term advanced. And then the core adoption materials. We use Big Ideas both as a textbook and then as an online textbook. So there's some benefits to it. Students can go back to refine their work. They can submit work there. Or they could use it simply in lieu of carrying a large textbook around. Big Ideas used at algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. If a student chooses to take AP statistics, we have adopted that as well as modeling, pre-calc and calc, and then our bridge to college mathematics. Most of those are hyperlinks if you want to go dig deeper into more about those textbooks. Here's data from math for same snapshot. I know it's a little rough to look at. The percentages are at or above grade level, near is near grade level. Again, for students that we would not provide intervention for. So looking longitudinally, this year especially, I think we're in year 2. The elementary school is focused really, their primary focus is math instruction. We're working with the ESD. We're looking at instruction and implementation and strategies in which we're teaching math to students. Because our curriculum is we've had it a few years, so it's the conversation is it the materials or is it how we're implementing and sharing it out to students? So this is a really big focus at the elementary school. Ms. Richards and Ms. Coda have talked about all students or all teachers' focus for their evaluation this year, and their PLCs is stemmed around mathematics and how they're instructing in math. Yep, you got your mic.
My eyes are a little blurry tonight. The last column, I'm noticing the difference. And just like any other data, do you think any reason behind the lower scores during this year?
Are you on far right?
Yes.
That percent. So in June, we'll have a more comprehensive understanding. We're not comparing end of the year data. We're looking at the
Gotcha.
mid-year
Okay.
data. So that percentage in June will look different.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's something I had to wrap my head around. Is in the mid-year, they're being compared to where they should be at the end of the year. So most kids will not be at grade level in the middle of the year because they're testing the full year worth of skills. And so that last column is sort of like, I've been looking at the,
It's scary.
yeah, I've been looking at both of them combined, because those who are near grade level at mid-year, near end of year grade level by mid-year, theoretically should be there by the end of the year. But yeah, that first number, until you think about it as at or near end of year grade level expectations, is definitely scary. Yeah.
And we've heard it from Ronnie and others through CEEs. This is a real nice snapshot of that land of opportunity from what we do in these really core few months before end of year testing to see what targeted needs there might be. Similar at the secondary level, again, that final column is mid-year assessment of January, end of year data presented in June 2026 at the end of the year for our SIP update. So looking at this data trend, the secondary team is now also starting to work with, oh, I see it. Thank you, Dr. Clifford. I'm trying to do both. The secondary team is also beginning work with the ESD in order to look at our scope and sequence and our offerings so we can look at how we get students ready for 9th grade algebra. We talked about it just today with our ESD that it's a pretty common pattern to see a dip at early middle school level. It's a large jump socially as well as in an academic setting, and then some recoupment to it. And then also looking at materials and is this meeting the needs and is it meeting the Common Core state standards as well?
I'm really glad that we have a focus on mathematics this year, because this certainly looks like we need to support the teachers with curriculum and professional development however we can.
Yeah. And it's the people we're working with through ESD really calculated questions about what areas we want to focus on so that we can start to target some of this work and then also have a longer scope as to how we do improvement with math instruction. This is one of the visuals that we're working with. We've had a lot of people do training through the ESG. This is I think when people hear new math, and a lot of parents are like, I don't know how to teach my student math because it's not the way I learned. This is a nice visual to help us start to begin to understand recall of fluency, the recall of facts, time tests, time assessments, being able to automatically recall multiplication facts is the basic that is not necessarily, it's not tested to show knowledge or understanding of math. So a rich classroom, rich in vocabulary, is building on computational and procedural fluency in mathematics. So we're looking at instructional practice beyond time tests and fluency that is recall, but it's operational and it's conversation. So rich vocabulary in mathematics in classrooms where students are talking about strategy and they're talking beyond just quick recall and facts. So this is a process, and this is kind of an idealized approach as to how we want to start seeing and hearing mathematics being taught and conversational with students. I went to a training as well as a group of teachers went that are using some professional development and book studies to begin to think beyond and think about how we're teaching fluency in these senses beyond recall of facts. Which kind of leads me right into professional development. So this kind of gives an overview snapshot of the last few years. And these have universal for all, English, and then maths on the next slide. 2019 to 2021, inclusionary practices for universal design for learning, often shortened to what's called UDL. 2023 to 2025 are social emotional learning, focused training on restorative practices for classroom and beyond. So whether it's discipline within classroom, engagement and relationship building with students. Speak Up at School. We had a really powerful training today where our high school students presented to our staff for how they're going to present to our students. It's combating hate speech and harmful language in schools. LSCI Life Space Crisis Intervention is a PD or professional development focused on social emotional learning and support both for staff and students. So that is a tier 1 approach for all staff training. And then in the last 2 summers, we've sent about 20 staff members to 2-week intensive support training cohorts for social emotional learning and behavioral supports. Other professional development that was alluded to earlier, K5, CKLA, Amplify, Boost, and M-Class is ongoing continuation on-site and remote. Collaboration with their professional development trainers, and then a area of focus is refinement of a curriculum map with staff, and then the pacing guides so that we're meeting the maximum of the curriculum that we have and we're investing in, and we're utilizing it with all the time that we have. Again, our special education, all certified in Seeing Stars and Visualizing Verbalizing, as well as M-Class, which is that intervention program that was adopted along with CKLA. Our 612 teams, the PLC, the 612 vertical alignment, that team continues to be a very productive, collaborative group. They selected a book study this year on refinement of instructional practice. We're thinking about how we're engaging our students. We're coming up onto challenges of students when it comes to engagement and participation. And so we're turning to research-based information on how to support and implement our curriculum. This is what's going on with math, the Math Fact Fluency. We sent a group to the ESG this fall, and then we've had some training with Math Fact Fluency. And this for if you have a student who is at the elementary school with a teacher, this is, it'll look like games to them. It's a lot of conversation about how we teach that type of fluency in the lens of games. So there's a lot of really interactive, really kind of fascinating ways to listen to kids and their math vocabulary as they're playing games. Building thinking classrooms. We've had a group that done in-person and then remote-based training. It was a PLC focus for book study. We were talking with our ESG lead. Her name is Tina Mott about it today. And this is kind of a snapshot of what that focus from the ESG's collaboration on our math instruction has been so far this year. So she's been on site at both campuses. K5, she's done multiple trainings and did releases with some grade level bands and talking about going into their classrooms reviewing their lesson and then talking about refinement through the lens of had that fluency and going beyond that basic math facts. And then 612, we're working on scope and sequence alignment. We started in January, and she's coming back in early May to do an all-day release day with our math team to think about what are our foundational steps to get our students ready for 9th grade algebra. And so the team from a 612 lens is going to sit down, because even though it's 9th grade, what do we need in 6, 7, 8? What do we need in 9? And what do we need to prepare them for after 9th grade? Next steps, there's a lot coming up. It's really exciting. Collaboration with the Instructional Council. We have our draft of our current curriculum. We want to make that comprehensive, and we wanted a K-12 level so that whether you're a new staff member coming in or you're a family interested in coming to South Whidbey, or you're a current family here, you can go online and see what my student is learning. So having that full transparency. Continuation of development with special education, ELL, our English language learners, highly capable, and curriculum material inventory to continue that process and integration. The website for accountability, accessibility, and transparency of curriculum used here at South Whidbey School District. We're looking at creating a more clear guidelines for adoption cycles with budget and sustainability in mind. Collaboration with Mr. Field on how are we spending our dollars and how are we spending it wisely, and also meeting the needs of our students, our staff, and beyond. And then the continuation is Common Core state standards are updated. ELA is on the way, math is soon behind it, and the alignment to our Common Core state standards within South Whidbey School District's curriculum. And that's my last slide.
First of all, thank you very much for the top to bottom draft to next steps presentation. It's always fascinating to see what's coming up. I'd like to turn it over for questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you. Good gratitude for the whole presentation. I really, in particular, enjoyed that the math explanation where you start with drill, but then that's not the core of how math is learned. And so that helped me understand how staff is processing how to get kids to the next layer of math. Yeah, this was really helpful. So I love this graphic. My question for students, if I can put you on the spot for a minute, is you've been living in the English literature curriculum now for 3 years. And so you came kind of out of the older version and into this. Do you see a change in the classroom? Do you see, what do you see now that maybe didn't exist when you were in middle school, or anything else you'd like to say about the, challenges or opportunities of doing the work that you're doing now with all these amazing books?
Yeah, I would definitely say I read quite a few of the books on this table here, and I can just say, like, they're definitely books where it's like the underlying messages are very, very important. And I think that's great to roll out to students too. And I think it's a very diverse layout of books as well that tell a lot of different stories that are very important. And yeah, honestly, that's my main point. And I've had actually a great time reading a lot of these books. They're actually pretty interesting, and I think a lot of people have too.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time since I was in eighth grade, so I can't really remember concretely, but I think this curriculum feels very thoughtful, and it feels very intentionally centered around the students in our district. And I think like Lulu was saying, the books are very have very important messages that I think have helped shape our students.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot.
I'm curious, you mentioned a couple of opportunities or tensions, one being a history curriculum that's starting to feel a little dated, and another being the question about economic viability and timing usefulness of the open science curriculum. I'm just curious, do either of those tensions feel urgent in terms of needing to be addressed swiftly, or can they both wait until some other things have shifted and made some space?
Specifically to science at the 612 level, Our team is a really solid team, and they're utilizing OpenSciEd is open source, so it's accessible and free. So they're utilizing it, but part of the challenge with it is the amount of materials and the time that is required. So for example, one unit can be 40 lessons. So to do 40 lessons in one unit is too time consuming. So we're not hitting essential standards. And it's a really great concept there, phenomenon based. But a lot of our teachers are finding that the phenomenons that have been selected by OpenSciEd are falling flat to students. So taking the information, the standards, and then crafting it, it's a true craft in order to meet the needs of our students, but then also within our timeline.
I want to add that open curriculum materials is a really beautiful thing because it is free. However, most districts, when they go to open, they then end up going to a vendor who has packaged that open materials, because it's a lot of design, sorting through, filtering to then create and curate those materials to make it work for you, because there is a plethora of resources and information, as Mrs. Phillips has shared.
And it's a balance of the redundancy of, could I go and just buy this kit every year versus, well, I know I have Q-tips here and I have this here and beakers here. So is it spending dollars on materials and consumables or dollars in time? So it's that conversation with the team. And then is it meeting our standards and is it meeting the needs of our students and our staff? So science is a focus that we've been having conversations about what the needs are there.
And does
Fair.
it take 40 lessons?
It also speaks to the fact that, you know, we live in a moment where we can learn almost anything, at least the intellectual and academic opportunities to learn are out there on the internet. However, we sort of need to go through a program in order to get it in a digestible fashion.
I have a couple questions. I'm going to ask a simple question for a very complex item, so I'm not negating that. The scores specifically for math, and math is one of those skill sets where you build on as you apply more concepts. That to me, and you said, you know, we typically watch it for a few years. Are you going to go, okay, something is, we're missing something along the way? I mean, you're going from 63 to 41, and I'm following the same population, I mean, the same group of students. It's dropping pretty low. And so my question is when do you reassess and go, okay, something's not working, implement a new program if it's economically sustainable, of course. To me, math is a build on kind of concept. Science, you know, you could go in 6 different directions with science. English is also one of those build on. So you would hope to see the scores stay at a neutral kind of percentage or go up. And so it's telling me what skill sets or what tools are we not working in that may be a curriculum bound question, and that may be applicable, meaning how it's being delivered and instructed. Because those, once you get to the upper class, I mean, if you don't have those skill sets and that foundation, you're only going to see those numbers go down, because then people are just kind of floundering.
And what your question that you asked was exactly what we started asking ourselves about 2 years ago, which is why math has been a targeted focus, especially in collaboration with ESD. The conversation is do we need to update our curriculum or do we need to look at our instruction? So that's how we're looking at a collaborative approach of let's look at this. And then if not, let's look at curriculum. So looking at it from an economic standpoint of, you know, through Ed Reports, which reviews curriculum to see if it meets all standards and meets all needs. So does it do that? If so, then what is lacking? Is it instruction or what is it? So that's where our team is at right now.
And then my other question, and this is just kind of way out yonder, so bear with me, but there's more research showing that when you have a student in front of a computer, and I'm going to use you for an example, don't mind me, you're my visual, but some of those main components that we used to have to do with hand-eye following a pattern, which then, you know, when you get to geometry and chemistry, it makes a lot more sense because your brain can follow a pattern. And now when we don't have that necessarily, and so many things are automated, sometimes some of those skill sets almost fall off as we neutralize how it's being delivered. Even though this removes barriers, we have to take that into consideration. I'm just wondering if you guys have really kind of scratched your head on, okay, what if we just go back to the basics and remove some of those easy tools that's really not requiring the brain as it was back in our day to really follow sequence and build on school skills.
Wendy, it's like you're sitting in PLCs right now. That's a primary conversation right now. And what's the role of the technology and device and the conversation of consumption versus what we're creating? And then what is an essential skill that what we know through research should be done paper pencil, and it's the active skill of learning how to utilize that versus what can we leverage with technology to deepen their learning in ways where technology has its role, but also that we're still activating beyond the screen interpersonal ways. So that's a big conversation that's being had, not just in math, but in all content areas.
I'm just wondering if that was the case, maybe some of these scores would go up. I mean, just falling back on old school skill set tools.
And I just,
Go for it. Yeah.
I just wanted to add and reiterate one of the things that we talked about is those math games, and it's not math games; it's really math activities. They're hands-on. They're in the classroom, manipulating whatever activity they have in front of them that is mathematical practices, and they're not only engaging in it not on the computer but engaging as students together, but they're also having mathematical discourse. So that's been a big focus of the professional development for the K-5 this year. And not only are they applying that in their classroom, but in their training, they're experiencing those engaging activities as teachers and going through that. So you're right on.
And for me, it was repetition for me. I mean, the only way I made it through chemistry was because I had a formulated brain on repetition of memorizing formulas and then applying them into sequence. And
at the elementary level, it's a really fascinating conversation to sit with the kid because they're thinking about what operation or which one they're going to use to solve it, because it's not just this is the one way to do it. They have learned and they've actively looked at processes to say, I'm going to use this one today and here's why. So when we hear math games, you might think it looks fun, but there's anchor charts with vocabulary and conversations that is priming the conversation they're having, and they're talking through which one they're using, what they're doing, and why they chose it. So it's steeped in their vocabulary within mathematics versus just, I think we all probably sat through those timed multiplication tests and the anxiety just hit most people. So those are no longer something that is being utilized because that isn't actually teaching math. It's teaching you to memorize. Whereas this is deepening their knowledge and their ability to access what I'm going to use and why.
I've had the opportunity to help with some of those math games in fourth grade, and it's been fascinating. I mean, some of the activities are a little dry, but the kids really engage with them, even when I think they're really dry games. And seeing them look at the different ways to approach a problem based on, I want to get this score. I want to fill in that box and beat you in this, as opposed to just, it's a question on the test or the quiz or whatever it is, has been really fun. So I really appreciate the engaging that kinetic sense that comes with actual manipulatives and moving things around and rolling dice and that sort of thing, as well as seeing them experiment with and stretch their math vocabularies to play the games.
And to add to your question, it's also looking at technology and the sustainability of, is it when we go to purchase materials and adoption, what's the best benefit, whether it's online or physical textbooks or physical materials, is conversation that we're having through the lens of sustainability, but then also, is it the best access point for students?
So I guess my last question is, if we continue to see scores go down, even though there's a lot of interactive, which is huge, and you don't get that on a test, you really, that's the other thing we got to keep in mind. There's a lot of skill sets that we're developing that you don't see on a test. But at the end of the day, when do we kind of reassess if we need to try a new curriculum or approach? I mean, how many years do we go?
Working with our ESG, this is year 2 looking at those things, but this is our first year really looking at instructional practice and integrating those concepts. So I think looking at the end of this year and then seeing what SBAC rolls out. And I appreciate you saying, you know, this is one snapshot, this is one test, and this is not showing the comprehensive view of our students. but we still have analytics that we are compared to through the state. So this year, looking at what and getting feedback from our teachers. Now that we've done this, is this meeting the needs? Is the curriculum still meeting your needs, or do we also need to look at new curriculum that will meet the needs for staff and students?
Yeah, and this, I know that y'all are always looking at all of the subjects, but this has been the first year in a while that it's been a top-down direction from the board to specifically focus on mathematics. Were there any other questions or comments, Director Greenhair? I don't want to leave you out of it also.
No, but thank you for asking.
I did want to put our student reps on the spot again a little bit. Some of what I wanted to ask was already mentioned and discussed. And I want to pose this both to our student reps who are in their living life and also to you, Ms. Phillips, looking at it from the academic and administrative level. Is we've heard a lot of what we are working on, where we've been pushing forward. I'm curious, where are the one or two areas where we really, really need to update curriculum? You mentioned a couple of them in there, but I'd just like to, are there any areas that y'all have noticed that it just doesn't fit your lived experience particularly? And if you don't have an answer right now, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I can't think of any on the spot.
The reason I'm asking is I remember a couple of years ago, there were some discussions of some of the health and PE textbooks in particular that were, some of the examples were just what, let's say retrograde.
Yeah, I think if I were to say anything, it would be health PE. That type of thing is usually the thing that gets like quickly outdated or like has harmful language in it. So I think if I were to say anything, it would be that for sure.
And then I'd like to turn to the professionals. Anything in particular that stands out for you is something we should be looking at sooner rather than later?
We're starting to focus in on mathematics, and then our conversations around science at the secondary level is, again, we have a very solid team, very strong team, and we thought OpenScience was going to be perfect for us, and it was piloted, and our team has changed over the last couple of years. From even when we looked at our inventory and our needs assessment, it's almost an entirely new cohort of staff. So looking at what they see with their experiences that they've brought as they've joined our team. So science would probably be our next focus, aligned with math, and they serve one another. So it'll be interesting to see. And then again, the conversation of what's sustainable financially as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for on that. Anything else on this curriculum presentation?
The only thing I want to add is, number one, I want to thank again Mrs. Phillips and our principals for working with their building leadership teams, and then our school department leads and staff planning professional learning communities, because they've been really doing a lot of work and a lot of effort to make sure that they're reflecting on learning and growing and then continuing to apply their practice. And they've been putting in some different pieces or kind of measures to monitor, like at the elementary level, an audit at the beginning of the year around math, and then we're going to do a check-in at the end. And so I'm really excited about the work, and I'm really grateful. The other thing that I wanted to share is that our teachers, even though we have a lot of areas where there's teacher created, that is a hard, it's not a known skill. It's not a natural skill to have, is to create, but our teachers are very talented and they work together. And so where we don't have adopted curriculum, I'm confident in our teachers' ability to be really designing instructional experiences for our students that are standards aligned and that are meaningful. So while we're in the process of this adoption, I do want to acknowledge that I'm confident in the work of our teachers.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And again, thank you again for the presentation. The effort that went into it and expertise is very clear. We'll now turn to our student reps for just discussion as needed for the transition. Representative Dobmeier will be leaving the board, and sadness indeed, and finding someone to step into those shoes that you're leaving. just if there's anything that you need from us, anything we can help with. I know that you are working with the principals to get that process underway. Just wanted to bring it up for anything that you saw as needed to change, you'd like to change, or anything we can help with.
I think in general, we really didn't change much. It's an election this year, so we just updated a couple of the questions in the survey to reflect that. Like we're doing a video campaign as compared to like a preferred form of like application, I suppose, and just things like that. We're gonna go around to advisories in the coming weeks and promote the position and stuff like that.
I think also it could be beneficial just to get like some posters out, maybe too, maybe like a social media post, like stuff like that, just like reminders.
Excellent. Done and done. We'll move on to policy review. I'm not sure who I'm going to direct it to first. I believe Director Downs, all yours.
Sounds good. All right, starting off with student records. This was an essential update. This one actually, Dr. Clifford, I had a question for you, as the only real change would be crossing out guardians, which we've intentionally put in. And so my wonder is, was the update specific in needing to remove the word guardian, or is that just the difference between what WASDA put out and what we have?
That was the update. That was the difference between WASDA. Sorry, that was the difference
Okay.
between WASDA and our policy. So we're keeping that in. And as actually, Ms. McCarrow, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, basically when we do the review, it'll cross out anything that we've added that
Yep.
WASDA hasn't. And so if you look, I put in also the second one that updated as of this month. It says April. It's showing that we want to keep the Guardian. I highlight in yellow stuff that we add that
Okay.
we want to keep. And then it's still crossing out, as WASDA did, the sentence about the diploma.
Okay. So then the conversation for us as a board would be, do we want to follow WASDA's recommendation or keep what we had?
I'm always in favor of including guardian unless there is a legal reason not to.
Yeah, same, +1. Plus that matches our other policies currently.
I would agree.
I'm also, unless there is an administrative reason not to, very much in favor of removing that. The diploma may not be released because I want to get diplomas to the students.
This addition to our policies is landing very differently in our family these days, as we have guardianship of some additional children right now. And their school that they're attending does not include guardian on any paperwork. And I can just feel like I can share respectfully that it hits home every time. And every time that those kids bring me their homework packet and it asks for a parent initial, or it asks, or the email says parents come join, or it hits. And so I just really appreciate the board's support in us continuing to put the word guardian. I encourage our administrators to look anywhere that it says parent and just add the option for guardian. It just really helps avoid conversations that kids shouldn't have to have.
Yeah, agree completely. The communications I receive as a guardian here will often just say adult family member.
Yep.
Which I fully appreciate as well, because it is so open of all
A lot of
possibilities.
different ways that families come together.
I have a question about the diploma sentence being struck for Dr. Clifford, which is there anything that I'm not thinking of that would be perhaps a negative repercussion of this change?
This has been in policies for a long time because when students have fees, this was a way of holding accountable for fees to be to be retained or to get them back. And I think that there's just different ways that we can handle that.
Agreed. Thank you.
All right, next one, student health. I am assuming that this has been reviewed by our student health teams, and they are the experts in this area, not I. Not a whole bunch of real changes, language changes, updates.
My one question on this was the or designee being removed, superintendent or designee. Is that something that we want to keep in for more flexibility in that first sentence? Or is that something that really needs to be on the superintendent's plate?
I don't remember. We didn't actually have a conversation about that particular thing, and I think that it would make sense to include the designee, maintain the designee, actually, in this context.
Normally, I would be in favor of the flexibility, but in this sentence, the verb is arrange. And so the superintendent can arrange for health services by delegating. And so it doesn't matter one way or another. So I guess do whatever we feel creates the best sentence and the most flexibility in, for the super.
Maybe that's why it was removed. Thank you for.
Good point.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Automated external defibrillators. Again, I'm assuming our nursing team have reviewed, and we would like to have AED devices, and we would like people to have training.
I just want to verify that every single policy that's coming in and has been reviewed by the appropriate department and also reviewed by our administrators.
Yep. So.
Yeah, those folks are the experts here. I have no reason to overrule what they think looks good.
And we want AED devices. They are helpful. Cool. Okay.
You took out the provided by the Washington State Department of Health guidelines. Where do you guys get your guidelines from?
It's above in the added sentence. So the Washington State Department of Health, DOH, requires any person to receive training. And then it's also referenced down in legal references, management resources, and the cross references. Those would have.
It says according to the DOH guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they shifted around the purpose of some of these sentences at WASDA when they made these edits.
The reason why I ask is because like DOH requires me to have certain training, like medical training, but the guidelines are in the Washington State Department. Some people don't know what DOH means, and they can sometimes see it as two different things. That's why the abbreviation is.
Well,
Can be
and
tricky.
it's
It
fully
has-
written out right above that.
It has
Yeah.
the same requirement too.
That's a good thing to keep in mind, though. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Last one, student immunizations for life and threatening health conditions.
I appreciate having the wax in there. I also appreciate the removal of his, her, done in there by WASDA. And I'm going to trust the experts on this one.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. And I'm just going to check real quick to make sure that there's no Q&A in the Zoom. I don't believe that there is. Nope. So we are good. With that being said, this meeting is adjourned. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.